Hello, everybody. I'm so excited. Today we have Heidi Craun on. She's with Intermitten and Clearcover, but we only have a tiny space at the bottom, so that's why we have both listed. Sorry about that. And before, I know everybody loves to click out of a video after 20 seconds, so that's why I'm going to quickly say, very first thing before even really introducing Heidi, is that Heidi runs this really awesome conference that is happening on August 7th, so this Friday at 10 a.m. And if you go to intermitten.org, you can still get tickets for the event. It's super amazing. Do you want to just say a little tiny thing about it? And then we'll talk more about it in a little bit, a little tiny bit about it.
For sure. So this year we are talking all about how we can empower equity and justice in our workplaces, in our communities, and in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we have a stellar lineup of speakers, fun activities, no gross networking. I think it's going to be a really great event.
Yeah, and it's virtual this year. Normally it's in person. I'm wearing my Intermitten 2018 t-shirt to represent. I'm living out my Intermitten fantasy right now where I'm wearing this. I'm the only audience member and I have you held captive live on the internet. I'm tell me all the things. But yeah, it's a really amazing event. I go every year. I know a lot of people that go every year, and it's it's not like any other conference that you attend where I feel like you have such great intentional speakers that have really high quality things that they've prepared to say, and it's a speaker series and you listen to all different types of topics, and really great. So if anybody is interested, go to intermitten.org and sign up, and it's all right there. Yay. Yeah. Okay, so now to go back for all the people, now all the people just click out of the video. they're done. Yeah. The curve of watching goes like this. So cool. Yay. So Heidi is really awesome. I feel like we randomly got connected a few years ago by people who were like, oh yeah, and then Heidi does that. And I was like, who's that? And they're like, wait, what? And we've been ships in the night for 10 years of oh, she worked right across the parking lot from me when she was here. And then she was weird. I want to see a video, some spy cam of us passing by each other at all of these different things and never meeting. Yes. But of course, as soon as you move from Michigan to Illinois, that's when we get connected. But I was going to Illinois that next week. So we were able to get together. So enjoy you.
Nice.
Thanks. Oh, you're but you've been at a number of tech companies and worked with a large number of tech companies in the past, and then have also were at Hyde Park Angels, who I love, an angel group. So both on the operator side and the investor side, and now you're back in tech at Clearcover, which is super awesome. So I have all my questions written over here. That's why I keep being
all right, I'm gonna look over there too.
Yeah. So you've worked at several high growth companies in the Midwest, including Duo, Farmlogs, and now Clearcover. So what are some important qualities you've found to running a successful company, both operationally and culturally? It's a hard one. I'm so what is the key to success?
Yeah. I have the answer.
Let us all know.
If only it were so simple. But I think some traits of companies that I've been in that I think were successful, maybe not so much, maybe didn't result in an IPO or something like that, but there are all kinds of dynamics at play in startup life, as you know. Exactly. So I think one of the biggest things that I found is flexibility and a shared commitment to continuous improvement and constantly learning and growing. And I think that's something that's inherent at some level in startups. But there's also, I think people can lose sight of that at some point. So for example, most of the time, like you have to have somewhat arrogant people to consider starting a startup. Like, you know, like there has to be some level of like, I can do this better.
Yeah.
Otherwise you wouldn't have somebody bold enough to take the risk. Right.
Yeah, that's true. I also think that about politicians a lot of times.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm like, man, alive. What's happening?
Yeah, exactly. But at some point, like that's kind of what gets you started. And I think at some point that arrogance has to subside a little bit such that those same people are willing to say, I don't know what I don't know, or this is something I don't know a lot about, and I'm going to surround myself with people who do know and continue to learn from them and allow them to support the business in ways that I'm not as equipped to do at this point. Because like companies are going to grow above and beyond the expertise of the individuals who helped start it. So I think just having that ingrained in the culture and even in the operations, like the structure and the operations of an organization.
Mindset or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like that. Yeah, I think that is true because I think it's like a lot of the best or a lot of like the most like influential founders that I've known over time do seem like they feel their company can do something and offer something that nobody else can, but they don't necessarily think it's like just because they're the best at doing that, and that they really like nurture a culture of like a really inclusive culture that's like everyone brings their best every day, and then that's how they're able to execute on greatness.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is probably what got your startup successful isn't going to be what keeps your startup successful when it grows and it's no longer a startup, right? You're going to have to be the heretic within your own company and say, you know what, there's an even better way now. And we need a new product, and we need to keep layering on and growing to keep up with the other people who are trying to disrupt us now.
Yeah, I do think largely that is kind of like an underlying piece of the tech community culture is this kind of like find the best way forward and like kind of constantly changing. And we've done a number of like research pieces on the impact of COVID on different types of businesses, and like it was very clear in the tech sector that they like in the tech sector, because I think that's part of things, they were able to, you can see that those types of companies, that startup companies were able to find that way faster than a lot of other sectors where they're not necessarily needing to operate in that manner, that it's like they kind of are like a little bit more brick and mortar type stores are like, yes, you put the products here and then people come in and then they buy them or they don't. Like you're marketing to the people who walk by the store.
Yeah.
And so then when something kind of crazy happens, like a lot of times we've seen like those kinds of establishments have been hit a lot harder than the tech community. I mean, there's a million and one other reasons as well, but
yeah.
So I like that.
There's inherent interest in adaptation, I think, in being agile. And I mean, that's something that's talked a lot about in tech. It's an actual methodology, but I think maintaining that flexibility, even as individuals, is really important too. And another key, I think, is just really, really great communication, both within the organization and as the organization relates to other people, partners, investors, customers. Knowing how to build connections with people is what helps your company navigate tough times. I think sometimes people are a little bit reticent to share certain things with investors or board members, and oftentimes if they had shared, these people could have helped and built relationships to help the company navigate tough times. There are lots of professionals who have navigated similar situations or could offer strategic advice to help and support an organization, and board members and investors have a vested interest in helping with that. Yeah. I know it's a tricky thing when you're thinking about raising your next round of funding and things like that, but being open.
It's really difficult. I've heard that both from the investor. Oh, Amanda Luan says hello, by the way. She's like, Amanda from Bamboo Detroit, or Bamboo, sorry. I keep saying Bamboo Detroit. I'm like, I have to retrain. Yeah, so she said she's super excited for Intermitten.
Yay! Me too.
We're like, yay! What was I even saying before that? See how I'm like terrible. Like, I'm like, hey, look, it's Amanda.
You've heard it from both sides of the table.
Yeah, like from the investor side, when you say like, how are you helping? Like I've talked to like various angel and venture investors, even like on this platform, that like saying, how are you helping your portfolio companies navigate, and what advice would you give? And I think a lot of them are like that the portfolio companies that they're able to do the best for are the ones that are able to like communicate, keep them kind of constantly updated, and that they're trying to touch base with their portfolio companies every 2 weeks, because they're finding, like we were talking to Sarah Anderson from Centrifuge, and she was saying that she checks in with all of the companies that they work with and all of the firms that they work with like every 2 weeks, because everything seems to just change completely every 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, that is true. I feel like I even have to do that like internally in my own household. I'm like, oh, are we still all good? Or so what do you like, and this maybe wraps all into what we've already said, what do you like most and least about working at a startup?
Oh, most, I think, is the opportunity to have an impact. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot more responsibility than in more corporate environments, that's for sure. But it's so cool to be able to see the fruits of your labors and see such a short like cycle time from idea to execution, and just know that the work that you're doing every day has an impact on customers, has an impact on what the company builds next, on product releases, on marketing. That part is really, really fun, and it allows for so much growth and the ability to constantly challenge yourself and learn more. And I love that about startups.
Do you feel like that's kind of related to the size of the startup? Like at a certain point, do you feel like that feeling kind of starts to wane as it gets to be like a larger organization?
Yeah,
because I always find like I really like working at places where there's less than 10 people there. So I don't really know what that says about me. Probably something not good.
Not true. You're a leader.
But I feel like as soon as it gets to be like 20 people, like things start to like get really like, oh, these people need to know this thing, and I like to know like all the things that are going on, and like I maybe just like to have a lot of opinions about things I shouldn't have any opinion on.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, oh, like I remember talking to a few people that were working at Duo like 5 years ago, and I was like, yeah, is it like a bummer now that you guys are getting so big? Because everyone's like, whoa, like they got 600 people there now, what? And I'm like, I'm really sad about that in some way. And they're like, oh, not really. I was like, okay, maybe not.
That definitely happens though. Even at the executive level, like learning to be more comfortable. Again, it's the adaptability, right? Like learning to be more comfortable with, I'm no longer the expert in this, and that's okay, because I'm the expert in that. And I'm probably not going to know every single person in this company, and I'm probably not going to know every time someone is hired or let go, or just
that would be so weird.
Yeah.
Someone gets hired. That would be so weird.
Yeah.
Like, who's that?
Yeah, it's a shift for sure, and that's part of why, like you said, it ties into the last question. It really does, because you have to be adaptable and understand that your role is going to change as the company grows. And
then I think you really do see if you built a company you'd like to work at.
Yes.
Or not. You're like, oh crap, all that things we just did the last 5 years, this company sucks now. I'd like to leave.
Learn some things.
So what would you say, I guess, is the least favorite about working at a startup?
Ooh. One, I would say like the burnout risk. It's high. You work, especially if you're involved early, or you're a leader, you're working really long hours. Hopefully there's some semblance of work-life balance for sure, especially for individual contributors. But there are a lot of big pushes. Startups don't have the what's the word? The luxury, I guess, of saying like, oh, this is going to take longer than we thought, and we're just going to release this product in like 6 months instead of 2 months, because oftentimes you're trying to reach like a specific checkpoint with your board members. You need to hit your KPIs. You need to hit growth level KPIs in order to raise your next round of funding, or. And that can really burn a team out for sure. Yeah. So there's that. That's like the downside. And there's a lot of like just experimentation and unpredictability. Market dynamics can wipe out a startup in no time, right? And that's scary. It's not for everybody. Certainly not for the risk averse, but also for people who, are maybe they have a family and they don't have like the cushion to risk being wiped out if that happens. But I think like for me, the hardest part about a startup is not everyone does well. And I've been lucky. I think most of the startups I've been involved in have done quite well. They've been acquired and all that, but some haven't. And that's heartbreaking when you put all of that time and energy into the success of an organization, the success of customers, the success of the employees, and it just doesn't pan out like the vision that you had. And it's like, that's a grieving process for sure. You learn a lot, you take it with you to the next one, but I would say when that's happened to me, it took a solid year to like bounce back from that. It's just so much blood, sweat, and tears, like personal investment in building something really big.
Yeah, that's true. I think like that. I think that's also what I like about working is like that's like the flip side of the coin. Like when you work at a small organization, people are so personally invested in the work you do. Exactly. Hopefully, otherwise they got a GTFO.
Yeah.
And like we get banned from the internet after I say that.
It was worth it. It was so worth it.
I feel like but then at the same time, then when things do go bad, everybody is kind of like is like so disappointed. I feel like something on my face. I'm like, what is that? I keep thinking it's a smudge on my computer. Oh, I got it.
Was that on your face? I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, computer, and then I'm like, what's happening there? I'm like, oh no, that's actually on my face. Great. Perfect. Okay, next question. So we sponsored Intermitten last year, which look at this. I already asked you this question. But yes, so everybody should sponsor. I love it. So it was a conference that you co-founded. And so I didn't ask this. I'll ask it slightly different. Why did you start the conference originally?
So it was co-founded by me and a few other people. And I think we all kind of came to that with a few different passions and came at it from a few different angles. I'll share mine. I was working in the startup community in Ann Arbor, and I was an executive at a startup, and noticed how disconnected the community was itself. There were startups that I didn't even know existed in this, 150,000 person town. And that just seems crazy. Like there's not, or especially then, there were not that many people that there wouldn't be more collaboration across companies. And so there was that piece, like we need to connect more. But then another piece, which was when I was on the executive team at that company, we were really looking for senior level tech talent, and like a CTO who could, really help us scale from like Series C to an exit. And there's not a lot of that talent in Ann Arbor, Michigan. There's tons of tech talent, but it tends to be more junior. It's people coming out of the university, or they're people who are, they're at Duo and they're trying to see Duo to an exit, and you don't want to constantly be poaching from your friends. So we were inevitably looking at trying to recruit people from the coast, from the Bay Area, from Seattle, San Francisco, New York. And we would get like so far, and we would tell this Midwest story of like, you can afford a house here and you can have a family here. And like, there are so many advantages to being in the Midwest. And people would fly out and they'd be like, oh yeah, this seems great. The opportunity seems great, but it's a startup. If it goes belly up, what do I have to fall back on? And if I do, if it does fail and I'm looking for my next gig, I'm probably going to have to go back to the Bay Area. And at this point, I'm uprooting a family and I have a mortgage, and it's a lot less flexible. And so for me, it was this realization that there's actually a lot here, but we aren't like coming together and becoming this like larger, denser force and sharing our story in a way that helps other ecosystems to have like easy visibility into the opportunity in the Midwest. And so that for me was part of the catalyst for Intermitten. It was about bringing the tech ecosystem together. Of course, like the ecosystem the conference has changed a lot. The ecosystem has too. But it's evolved from there. And originally it was just kind of like, let's be the South by Southwest of the Midwest.
I feel like it is, in a way though, I still feel like it is like a conference that nurtures the community and addresses the needs of the community to bring more people together in a healthier, better way. And so I feel like in that way, it still seems like very much that. Like I feel like I go and I'm like, oh yes, like this is such a problem that you guys are addressing in a very like smart and interesting, honest way.
I love that. Yeah. In many ways, we are still true to that. We are true to form in terms of trying to have a positive impact on our communities and be thought leaders. It's the nature, like the specific talks that we talk about have changed each year, and that's intentional. I guess that's the like startup person in me is like, we should continue adapting to the needs of our market, our customers, and keep meeting those needs with every single event that we put on. And, we say this usually at the opening of every event. We listen to your insights. We listen to what's going on, the problems that we're trying to solve, and we try to bring together thought leaders who can really inspire us and help us navigate that as a group and help everybody leave more empowered and more hopeful and more excited to tackle the problems that we face, whether that's at work or in the community. At the end of the day, they're all interconnected. So that's been pretty true to form, I think, across all of them.
I feel like mission accomplished.
Yay!
I love it. And it also, I feel like it's so like a practice what you preach thing. Like earlier you were saying, like, startup leaders and people in the community need to be able to like adapt and like change and be flexible and have that learning mindset. And I think you totally like execute on that as well. So
thank you.
What is one thing, I'm asking you so many hard questions. Normally this is like a pretty easy thing to do, but what do you think is one thing the startup ecosystem in the Midwest can do to build a more inclusive and diverse community? Just one, because I don't want to have you try to solve all the problems, but if everyone was to take one step, what do you think would be the step?
Can I make it two?
Yes. You can do whatever you want. It's
okay. First things first, like partner with community organizations to give community members access to startup jobs.
Yeah.
It can't be just like recruiting people from Stanford, right? Like find people within the community who can provide unique lenses into solving your company's problems. They will help make your company better. And you might have to empower them and like build a bridge between where they are and how they can have an impact within your startup, but it's worth it. The second is then to give every employee equity. I think it's a really powerful way to help reduce income disparity across communities in different parts of our world. And
so explain that at like sort of a middle school level.
Oh, like what equity is?
Who kind of don't totally understand like what getting equity in a company would be.
So startups, they're not publicly traded companies, but one way that founders can compensate employees is by giving them part ownership in the company, such that if the company has a liquidation event, which is either is acquired by another company or becomes publicly traded on the stock market, the equity holder, the shareholder, has ownership in that and can like cash out.
Yeah. So if you start at another way to think of it is like, if you start at a company when there's only 10 people and they're like, I can only pay you this amount, but I'll give you 2% of the company or 3%, whatever. And then, you have a bunch of like as we were kind of talking about earlier, everyone is so like invested in the success of the company. And then they're now part owner of the company. And as the company does better and has successes, then that percentage of the company that you own is worth more. So by the time the company goes public or gets acquired or something, you're then able to sell your ownership in the company and you make a lot of money.
Yeah, hopefully. and that's important not only to like, lift up other parts of the community and not just make investors richer, but it's important because that amount of money that employees take away will, plus their experience in building a successful company, will help them go build another successful company. They have the cushion, then the financial cushion to go take a risk on building another company and creating even more jobs. And they understand like someone gave me equity, so I'm going to give my employees equity too. And equity it's a lottery ticket. It might amount to nothing, but it's a shame when it does amount to something and the people who help make the company valuable don't all benefit from their hard work.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think that we've talked about before, that is like not as in the Midwest is like not as common of a thing as like in larger or more long-term high-tech communities like San Francisco or New York, where they do that very frequently. Like that's kind of like a totally like you walk in the door and it's like a big conversation that everyone knows about. Everyone understands what equity is and how it fits into a compensation package. And here I think people aren't really like that.
Yeah. But the more we talk about it and the more people see like Duo's exit, for example, there are a lot of wealthy people in Ann Arbor now, and those wealthy people eventually will go on and start new companies. And the more that becomes visible, and the more that those people are investing in other startups now because they have that extra cushion to do that, the more people will learn to expect it and understand the value of it. And it's such an opportunity for us in the Midwest to be, and if we're pairing that with hiring people who live in our communities, you know, if you're not just going into Detroit, starting a startup, but hiring people who all live in Ann Arbor or Farmington Hills or other like affluent areas, you're hiring Detroiters. The Midwest can very quickly become the market leader and the employer of choice, because it's an area where tech is getting it right and not contributing to gentrification, and is instead benefiting a lot more people. So I think it's such a cool opportunity for the Midwest to do the right thing and better compete with other parts of the country, other ecosystems.
Yeah, I could totally see. That's so smart. I like how you brought that together. I was like, wait, what was the question again? Yeah, so you're saying that by working with local community groups so that you're able to hire from able to incorporate and work with a broader pool of people, and then also insert the equity piece. You're located in a region where then you are actually increasing the wealth of the people that live in that region versus just kind of exporting the money to Birmingham or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love that. Great. For the win. Okay, so we're running a tiny bit over, and I know that you have like other things to get to. So my last question is a super easy one. What is your favorite thing about living and working in the Midwest?
The people.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. There's a humility and practicality to the people here.
Yeah, that I so agree. I do feel like it's like people are like very team oriented here.
Mm-hmm. You said something to me one day that like I use this all the time now, and because I think it applies so much in startups when we're making decisions about how we're going to use investor money, and it resonates so hard with me. You said something like, unless somebody grew up rinsing out Ziploc bags and letting them dry next to their faucet, I don't trust them to make decisions about my money or something like that. And I was like, yes.
Ziploc bags is like totally a thing. Like all you poor kids watching. I love like when you meet with someone and you see that they were also a poor kid. I'm like, thank you. Yes. And now you understand me in my life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think that's too is like how, I mean, even something like that plays out in like when you have investors that are reflective of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So
exactly.
Like if you have more investors from a broader array of backgrounds, you tend to see startups getting funded that are from a broader array of backgrounds just because of that sort of like, yes, exactly. And then like, I think the opportunity for a broader range of businesses and like investment opportunities and things like that, I think are grow along with that. So I definitely feel like that. Yeah, that's something I like about the Midwest and also would like to see get improved dramatically in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
I'm so excited to see you. It's like, this is the prequel to Intermitten, and I'm so excited to be wearing my shirt. Also, on Friday, I will not wash it before then, but that's okay because I don't ever leave my house. So
yeah, we can't smell you.
The rules of laundry are like out the door.
Totally.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And I'm super excited for Friday, and everyone should go to intermitten.org. We put the link in the comments so that everybody can just click there and find your tickets. So yeah.
Yay. Cool. Thank you. Okay, this is so fun.
Very soon. Okay.
Bye.